Hi, it's Mike with the Portage County Safety Council. I'm here with Dr. Aubree from Peak Family Chiropractic in Akron, Ohio. Welcome, Dr. Aubree.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So, Dr. Aubree, we're here to talk about stress. Usually I sing a jingle, but last time I did, everyone made fun of me on the webinar. Let's talk about stress, you and me. Let's talk about stress. All right, enough of that.
That was good.
My wife's shaking her head in the background. You can't see her, thank goodness. And we are recording this, so it will be live. I'll made a fool of myself. So we're here to talk about stress. And You came out and did a presentation for us back in January 2020, and actually did a podcast with us back in the fall before that. And you talked about 3 types of stress, and it was amazing. And then in January, you came in and you said something during your presentation that really, to me, it was powerful, that I don't think we talk about enough about the effects of stress on our body. So let's get into that. What does stress do to our bodies?
Well, I think you have to understand first what your body should be like. And so I think so much anymore, we accept pain and we accept not feeling good, and we accept a level of health that isn't necessarily good or what we should accept. And so I think a lot of people almost like they don't hold themselves accountable or hold their bodies accountable to what they actually could be or their potential. And so normally your body should heal and your body should be healthy and you should feel good and you should be vibrant, and that's healthy. Mm-hmm. And that's having 3 or 4 different medicines that you have to take every day. Something's going on. That's not health. Like, you can't say, yeah, I'm healthy, but then also take blood pressure medicine and this medicine and be 100 pounds overweight, and that's not healthy. And so I think you have to understand, really your body should be at a level where it's good. And so if we say that that 100% is where you should always be at, and that's where everything happens from. And so, your body's also really smart. It knows how to heal itself, and it knows how to recover if it's healthy. And so if you look at somebody that has, 100% health, where they're actually, they don't have any issues, they don't have any pain, they feel really good, they're sleeping 8 hours a night, and they have plenty of energy through the day, and they eat really good, and on and on and on. And if you're at that level, your body should regenerate itself, and it should heal itself, and it should repair its cells and repair its muscles, and it should be able to do those things daily, because we have stress on our bodies every day. There's not one day that goes by that you don't have some sort of mental stress or some sort of physical stress or some sort of chemical stress. And that's what we talked about before on that podcast, I think, is the 3 types of stress: of physical stress, emotional stress, and chemical stress on our bodies. And so look at your posture. Posture, if people are working at home.
I had to sit up straighter when you said that.
I know. Everyone, it's funny because my husband
you get text neck, right? Kind of good.
Yeah. It's funny because my husband works for furniture companies that do ergonomic chairs, desks, everything. And one thing we talked about is that everyone is working from home this past year. And I've seen it in the office that everyone is starting to have upper back issues and neck issues and things that are completely different for these people, because they're using desks and chairs and computer setups and phone setups that are not ergonomic for them, or they're not good for them. And then everything else, falls and car accidents, blah, blah, blah. And then we also have emotional stress or mental stress. And this past year, this is probably the most mental stress. 2020.
What are you talking about? The first pandemic, 2, 3, 4 generations, killer hornets, riots in the streets, political unrest. I mean,
it just goes on and on.
Supply chain shortages, no toilet paper.
It's still going on now with everything.
No stress there.
And that, honestly, that's, I think, why 2020 was so bad, was because you were just constantly bombarded by that stress and that emotional stress, that mental stress every single day. I have any of my patients that I see that are on antidepressants, anxiety medicines, anything like that. I think by March of 2020, and I don't know the exact number, so this is not a quote, but I want to say they increased prescriptions for those things, I think 40% by March.
What's funny about that is Family and Community Services we have a counseling department, and our counseling department services increased 40% in 2020. That was before, and that came out in our winter newsletter before the year is over.
Yeah.
40%.
You look at like what the effect of that mental stress is. And, 2020 was a terrible year, and hopefully we're just going to keep going up from here. But really that affected a lot of people mentally and emotionally. And so probably a lot of what I talk about stress moving forward, I will relate to, emotional stress, because that's what we're getting the most of. But then we also have chemical stresses. So physical stresses, emotional stresses, chemical stresses that all can affect our body, and they all affect our body in very similar ways. So you may yes, a car accident is a heck of a lot different from losing a job, but they're both stress. And, all of a sudden, falling, landing on your butt, yeah, that's a lot different physically to your body than something as stressful as losing a job. But which one is actually more traumatic? Because
right. And the scary part is the emotional side. A lot of us were taught grit through sports or, parenting in our culture. Just get up and suck it up and get to work and provide for our family, do whatever we got to do, which is, it's good to have grit. But at the same time, the emotional impact. So I see it working with homeless veterans all the time. The PTSD, they didn't take care of at 22. Now at 50, they're divorced, homeless, drug addiction. It never goes away until you take care of the problem. I have a neck injury for a car accident. It's similar. When I was 14 and I flew up and hit the windshield, and I didn't know what my neck issue was my entire life. Then I finally got x-rays, and they're like, "You're in a car accident." I'm like, no, but there's long lasting effects, and these things affect one another. And it's not like it's that mind, body, spirit kind of thing. It's a holistic kind of thing, and medicine is really far behind in integration. Right. Yeah. So if I have pain and I go to a counselor, they're going to try to talk me through pain, and people get a lot of results from that. If I go to MD, they're going to prescribe something to take away pain, and then if I go to a chiropractor, you guys are kind of in between there, right? The nutrition aspect, a lot of,
kind of merge those things.
Kind of merge those things. So the integration definitely needs to happen. And what's mind blowing about this, and you can even set the emotional aspect aside, but because it happens either it causes it or it comes as a result of the injury. The emotional side of healing when someone gets like a workplace injury or something is just astounding. The pressure it could put on marriages and different things from stories I've heard. But really, when you came in January 2020, you asked a question. You said, raise your hand or stand up if – I can't remember which one you did, but you said if you go a week without feeling pain, not one person raised their hand or stood up. You said really not one. And then I think you broke it down to a day or two. Yeah, and now one hand went up.
And then went shorter and shorter and shorter.
And there was 120 career professionals there, safety managers, HR managers, CEOs, all through there. And I was blown away because you like to think you're the only one. Well, I deal with a little back pain or this. But every single person in that auditorium or that banquet hall that we were in, every single person doesn't even go a couple days without experiencing pain. So this is such a big deal, a big deal. And that then you throw in, they say stress was a pandemic itself or an epidemic before the COVID-19 hit. Now you put all that stuff, the economic stress, all these different things on top of that. And it has a super high impact on the workforce. We did a survey around Halloween, and it was half our members feel more stressed than normal.
Oh, yeah.
And then most of them think it affects their safety performance, their coworkers' work performance. Go down the list, and it's such a big deal. And it's like, how do you get all this done?
It affects everything, and they build. If you have one stress, it builds on the second. The second one builds, and then the third one builds, and the fourth one builds, and they just keep, compounding each other. It's like compound interest. Like, I don't want that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. Where, if you have one thing and then you have another thing and then another thing, how do you think your body's ever going to recover if you don't do something to fix it?
Absolutely.
You can't just assume that because it happened and it's over, it's gone. Which, okay, it's kind of a good attitude to have where like it's over, mentally you get over that, but you're still going to have the physical effects. You're still going to have, some sort of residual emotional part of that. But you have to take care of your body and you have to take care of the things that happen to it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the impact of stress in your presentation back then
Yeah.
on the body and on the nervous system in particular, and how that affects our organs. And I never heard that before. I knew stress affects us physically, and they say all disease and severity can be linked to stress, like generic terms, big 30,000 foot level. I get all that, but you went into some specific things that I thought was mind blowing. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit about how stress affects the nervous system, which in effect affects our organs?
So I'll talk a little bit about how it affects your body first of stress, and physical stress and emotional stress and chemical stress, they all affect us the same way physiologically. And so what happens to your body? And so I think it's the easiest way to picture this. What is the response? Like, what does your body do? What do you notice if you almost get in a car accident? Like, how do you feel? What are those things?
Your brain, so your heart rate goes up, you get panicky, the motion side comes, the adrenaline's there.
Sweaty, your breathing rate goes up. You get all of these little changes. You actually get changes in your pupils. Your pupils will dilate so you can see things better. Your hearing sharpens so you can actually be aware of everything. And that's our fight or flight response. And so that's a neurological response built into our body. And if you see on the chart behind me,
right?
This
we can see it.
Says sympathetic. I'm double checking because it's backwards. This says sympathetic, and that says yellow. All of these nerves that are yellow, which are literally like, let me see, these ones are sympathetic nerve fibers. And so those are all of the nerves that stimulate that fight or flight response, kind of what we just said, where if you get that like scary physical or emotional or any sort of stress response, that's what happens to your body every single time you have that. And so if all of these nerves start stimulating different things in your body, you can see your heart, it increases your heart rate, increases your breathing rate. It actually down regulates your digestive system, down regulates your immune system, increases your eyes, your vision changes, your hearing changes, and all of those things. It makes your muscles contract. So you ever get stressed out and you feel like you're doing this?
Right.
It's because your muscles are just tense throughout your entire body, and you just have all of these different things. It also releases blood sugar. So your body all of a sudden gets a spike of insulin. So you get a bunch of sugar released into your bloodstream so that if you needed to, you could run away from something. And that's really where that fight or flight response comes from, because it's giving your body the ability to run away from something or fight it. And so if you think of that like primitively, if an animal is attacking me, I'm either going to fight it or I'm going to run away. And so my body does everything to prepare me to be able to do that. It also releases clotting factors in your blood. It releases fats into your bloodstream, so blood lipids. Fat and sugars in your bloodstream with clotting factors. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to start getting atherosclerosis. You're going to
plus inflammation and all that in regards to that. Now I want to stick here for a second because I think this is phenomenal. I did some secondary research on mirror neurons in the brain.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that term or not, but
what'd you say?
Mirror neuron. I know, I got my country accent.
I'm like,
like a mirror neurons.
Oh, mirror. Okay.
Okay. So like your brain literally, from the research that came out about these, literally reflects or responds to everything it sees and does, or it picks up in the environment around us.
Yep.
And makes our body think it's happening. It interprets it as if it's happening to us. So someone's watching like a scary movie like Saw, and someone gets their arm cut off in the movie, and your body freaks out and it thinks it's happening to it. That's why we get that. Or you play Mario Kart and you're like leaning with the car, even though you're not on a steering wheel.
Little kids are playing video games where they're shooting guns and cutting people. And what do you think that's training their brain to think of? Like, it's kind of scary when you think about it to that level, like how young kids are actually getting that. But yeah, when we see those things, we go through that same response. And so people that love scary movies, I don't know how they do that, because I feel that response and can't settle down from it, but it does. You go through those same things. And if you see somebody get hurt, you kind of go through that like pain response that they do. And, they all do. And so it is very similar to that. A lot of that I've done a lot of like developmental research since I've had my son. It was great having maternity leave because I could take a lot of CEUs and everything's online now. But just developmentally, you know, right now he's almost 6 months old. 6 months, he is forming, it's called your ventral vagus nerve. And so your vagus nerve is one of your biggest cranial nerves. It exits right from the base of your skull. It's this little green nerve that goes to almost every single one of these organs. But it's really a nerve that's responsible for almost your entire body. And there's a ventral vagus. And so they just discovered this maybe like 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And they started doing a lot of research on it. And your ventral vagus is that emotional response that we get to situations. And so like right now, my son's 6 months old. This is the time where I can train his body to have, and train his brain to have good emotional responses to things. And so like, you know, right now when he's doing tummy time, I'm on the floor, happy faces, smiling, good mojo, like all of that, because that's where he gets it the most. And that happens throughout your entire lifetime. So you think about what you've had the whole time, you know, since you've been born pretty much, of how that affects your body, and how the, you know, just brain programming almost, like you're saying with those mirror neurons. No, sorry. Okay, you can. Sorry. Just how those mirror neurons work and how your brain trains itself, and how you're really setting yourself up for your entire life, but you're also setting it up for how it's going to heal in the future. And so you have to be cautious of what you're doing to your body, what you're putting into your body, like what visually you are, what you're watching, and all of that will affect you in many, many ways.
Right. I know I'm convinced that a lot of the depression, anxiety that we're dealing with is culture and society in all, you know, developed parts of the world are a result of cell phones, computers, just technology. You know, I went to, it's like kind of a like joke, but I think I went to a Quaker Steak and Lube somewhere, and I went to the restroom. It's kind of gross, but like in front of the urinal, there's an LED screen.
Oh,
like attached to the wall, almost like a little dryer like looking thing, but it was flatter with the flat screen, and it tilted out so you can't, like, it's leaning right toward your eyes. And I'm standing there and I'm like, really? I can't get like 2 feet of like clear space or tile? Like you have to like sell me something when I'm using the restroom?
Oh my goodness.
So it's kind of like a laughy joke, but I'm like, they take up every bit, but all that is like some form of stimulation. You know, you go to the grocery store, and there's a cinnamon toast crunch on LED, the commercial starts hitting, you're like, cinnamon toast crunch, you go through, everything's like stimulating and overstimulating with all this kind of like cortisol and adrenaline and all these things all the time. But we're not very active anymore, like you said, about, you referenced the sedentary employment, people for working from home. So those chemicals are just sitting in our body, aren't they?
Yeah, you're literally not doing anything to detox yourself. And so that's like, you know, what are you going to do to help those things? And there are several things you can do, but I kind of want to hit again on how, if you are in that fight or flight response, if you are getting stressed, and so just take the last month, look from the, you know, even a little bit more than that, look from the beginning of December. How much stress did we get political wise and COVID wise? And I honestly deleted my social media accounts because it wasn't anything positive. And you just see that all the time. So whether you're seeing that, you know, on the news, if you're seeing that on your phone, if you're seeing that or hearing that from other people, you're constantly, every single time you're talking to somebody, looking at your phone, you're getting that constant stimulation of negative. And that's stressful. And I think that's a huge thing this last year, is that when you hit that fight or flight, and when you're stressed out, especially chronically, you know, we talked about normal, you should be that normal, your body should heal, it should recover, it's very smart, it's able to do that. That's with acute stress. And so if I have one thing happen, yeah, my body should recover from that. And it should do that pretty quickly. You know, if you get in a car accident almost, you should feel like it kind of goes away maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes afterwards, where you feel like you went back to a baseline. Imagine if, you know, because physical and emotional stress affects you the same way. Imagine that you leave work, pull out, almost get into a car accident, stressed out. Not even 200 meters later, almost getting in a car accident again. Drive down the road another 200 meters, almost getting in a car accident again. And you just have that response and that response and that response and that response over and over and over and over again. And if you even do that 10 times in an hour, which is probably very realistic of how much stress we've gotten this last year, of just mentally having that over and over and over again, you don't necessarily have that recover period like you should. And so when you get that chronic stress where you're getting it repeatedly for days and weeks and months and years on end, which most of us have, you start actually going through a parasympathetic shutdown where the parts of your body that are needed to heal don't fire, they don't work. And so you're stuck, like right here, those sympathetic fight or flight nerves, you're stuck with those on. And your parasympathetic nerves over here that calm things down and bring you back to healing and to recovering don't fire because you're just stuck in that fight or flight physiology. And so your immune system, all parasympathetic. You're healing, all parasympathetic. You're sleeping, all parasympathetic. And so what is huge for recovery? What's huge for healing? Sleeping, resting, digestion, like all of those things, you need those resting, digesting nerves or those parasympathetic nerves to fire. But if your nervous system is constantly stuck in that fight or flight physiology, your body will never be able to recover. It's never going to be able to heal. So you see people that have chronic inflammation. Yeah, because you're constantly having blood sugar elevated, blood fats elevated. You're constantly having that heart rate increase, that breathing rate increase. And you just look, even if you just look at those four things, you're constantly having adrenaline release, adrenocorticosteroid. You're constantly having gluconeosteroids secreted. You're constantly having all of these different hormones that stimulate that fight or flight physiology in your body. And so over and over and over again, and I hope I'm like repeating
where it's like the impact on that on all chronic disease. Because when you're saying that and you're talking about how that works, I'm thinking, well, there's chronic heart disease right there. I mean, there's, everything you can think of, high cholesterol, like you mentioned earlier with the extra sugar coming, or diabetes.
Increase in a cortisol, like you'll get increase
insulin
in cortisol,
resistance probably I would think.
With what? I'm sorry.
Insulin resistance.
Like insulin resistance. If you are constantly secreting insulin in your body and constantly trying to raise your blood sugars, that's how people develop diabetes, is because, and people assume that it's just because you eat bad all the time. You constantly are eating those things that secrete insulin, but what if it's because you're constantly stimulating your pancreas to secrete different things, and it's because you're constantly stimulating these sympathetic nerves that fire, that secrete it for you. And so, you see those like smaller people that have, how do you have diabetes? How do you have type 2 diabetes? I don't know, I eat pretty good. Well, what's your stress like? What mentally, where are you at? Physically, where are you at? And you have to think of that too. It's not just the mental stress, it's the physical stress, and it's the chemical stresses. And so one thing for females, how much makeup do people put on and how many chemicals are in that makeup? Right. One thing, looking at one thing, your lotions, your laundry detergent, your chemicals you use in your house. How are you exposed to these things? And I don't have a hand sanitizer right here, but if I had a hand sanitizer, how many times are people using artificial scents and alcohol, and how many times are they using that on their skin and they're absorbing those chemicals into their body? And even more so this last year, like use soap and water. Don't use those chemicals, but you're constantly getting that stress, and you're constantly having all of those things happen internally in your body, and that results in systemic inflammation. Your entire body
that's
gets
important.
inflamed. Your entire body is, it's just irritated. You think about if you have like a spot on your arm and you just rub it. If I just rub this for the next day, this whole area is going to be inflamed. And so you kind of picture that like in your entire body, picture that in your stomach, picture that in your lungs, picture that in your heart, and everything's just irritated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, no wonder why fear and stress and everything that's gone on this last year, nobody is going to be able to recover and heal unless they find ways to cope with that, and they find ways to kind of get away from a lot of those things. So
Yeah,
it's hard to do.
I saw an article on LinkedIn from a psychologist, and she said something really profound. Probably back, I'm guessing in November. I'm thinking when we first started this series. She said that the first few months we were like, okay, we'll just lock down for a few months because that's how they promote it, probably wisely, because they tell people they're going to lock down for 2-3 years. They're probably not going to comply very much. But if you tell them 3 weeks and you keep extending it out, they're probably more likely to comply, at least in the beginning. So she said in the initial phase, most of us relied on adrenaline. It was kicking in. We're just going to tough this out like fight or flight. But she said after it goes on month after month after month, and now we're at the 9th, 10th month mark at the time. And she said there's a much more emotionally deep-seated part that we pull from to keep going. And what I noticed is people handled it fairly well. There's bad attitudes in the beginning, but when it came into October, November, and that second bump and second wave and talk of lockdowns, and whether we got locked down or not, just the talk of it was stressful. So, and people are like, is the gym going to close again? That's my out, and people are trying to navigate through that. I started to see in my personal life and coworkers and even on Zoom calls, like people didn't just do small stuff. Like they didn't fix their hair before the Zoom call. And
what do you mean?
They're dressing differently. But you know what I mean? I'm like, but that wasn't their character. And then you start to see in people, I'm like, are people working from home showering regularly like normal? Yeah. Seriously, it's like a joke, but it's like you start to see almost like signs of the people are sliding into depression. And not that I would diagnose anyone honestly, but you start to see that. Yeah. And even I had to catch myself a couple of times of you know what? I think I don't feel stressed, but I think you mentioned earlier the floor is higher, and that's probably a big deal. But I noticed the signs that I'm seeing of what I feel like and what the energy levels and different things are really showing that I'm stressed, but I don't emotionally feel stressed. Is that a common thing?
Well, so that's actually a big thing. If you're exposed to chronic stress, one of the things. So let me go back to this for a second. That sympathetic and
crap, I might be deeper in the woods than I thought. This is bad.
Yeah.
So if you don't realize it, that's chronic stress.
Well, so if you have chronic stress, what you tend to see is that those parasympathetic shut down. So it's pretty much like you eliminated them from your body. Mm-hmm. And so you're just running on that adrenaline. You're just running on that fight or flight physiology. But if you deplete that, if you overstimulate that for months and months and months and years and years and years, mm-hmm. you actually will go into almost like a no stimulation response where even your sympathetics are not firing correctly. And so instead of having really any part of your nervous system that's working well, you kind of get this physiology where you're like,
that's the attitude we've seen. It's almost like people stepped into this degree of apathy or indifference.
Yeah.
It's like, I just don't have the energy to deal with that right now.
You're not really getting either of these. You're not really getting that resting, digesting. You're not really getting that fight or flight. Your body almost goes, and I don't want to say a shutdown mode, but there's no other way to really describe no neurological stimulation. You're not getting a normal or even an abnormal response to stress. So then all of a sudden these stressful things happen and you don't get that heart rate increase. You don't get that blood pressure change. You don't get that blood sugar. And you're kind of like, okay, you get that apathy to it. And it's because you're not able to stimulate even those parts of your body. But that isn't a good thing that's gone, because it still will cause systemic inflammation. It makes it even harder for your body to recover if you hit those points. And the bad thing with that is I do think a lot of people are starting to get to that point because they've had so much stress, not just this last year, their entire life. And then this was that straw that broke the camel's back, is that everything this year has just thrown everyone a little bit too much over, which is scary. It's scary. And you have to be able to change those things. You have to say, okay, I'm going to start doing something different so I'm not like that. And so I can start to recover, and so I can start to heal my body.
And I want to throw in there real quick.
Okay.
What you said before was literally when this happens and stress overwhelms that part of our nervous system. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it or say it right because I'll probably say the wrong part. I'll probably say the other system that I can't remember the name of either. But when it hits that, you said it actually prevents our body from really going into rest. And I thought that was so profound. And you said, so the body at that point heals itself in rest. So the body is preventing stresses, its impact on our nervous system is preventing our body from healing itself. So if we're talking workplace injuries, huge deal. If we're talking chronic health, huge deal.
Yep.
And so, we're talking definitely a direct link between stress and chronic disease, probably no matter what. And so, can you explain that a little bit? Then we can talk about maybe how do we come out of that and switch back into that healthy.
As I was thinking about this and, thinking about, it's hard. Like even people that haven't struggled with any sort of emotional depression, anxiety, physical pain, this year has been tough on a lot of people. So if anybody is watching this and they are like, yeah, that's me. Again, like when I said, raise your hand if you've had pain in the last week, and everybody, or raise your hand if you haven't had pain, and nobody raised their hand. I kind of think that that's the majority right now. So nobody should be nervous or scared or upset or frustrated or however you want to feel, that you don't feel like yourself, or that you don't feel that you feel that you are responding that way. And you really have to figure out how to master your response. And so that's kind of what I was like, how do I word this? But you have to figure out, how do you master your response to the things that are going to continue to happen? Because we're not, this isn't over, and you're never going to be overstressed. You're never going to be gone with stress. You're always going to have it in some capacity. And so you have to master your response. And what do you do? And so, like you were telling me, I don't know if we were on this already or if it was before, but you hurt your knee and you went to the chiropractor, got adjusted, and it helped. And if that's a physical stress for your body, you have to know that there are those different routes you can go to help with physical stress so that you don't constantly have those things. So if you have chronic pain, go see a chiropractor, go see a physical therapist, go see a massage therapist, and you see those 3 people for a month, you're probably going to feel better physically than you have in a very long time. And if you eliminate that physical pain from your life, that's already a huge improvement. But then you also have to master your mental response, which I think is the hardest thing for most of us this year. And, for doing that, everybody's a little bit different. And, for me, getting rid of my social media, we don't have a TV in my house, so I don't watch the news. And I'm not constantly bombarding myself with those negative things. And that's just me personally. But in order to master that mental response to stress, I got rid of it. I just said, all right, I'm not going to deal with it. And, really over this last year, knowing everything about COVID, did it change my life? Yes, because of going to the grocery store, and yes, because of, the gyms closing for 2 months. But after the gyms opened up and, I'm at work and I had a baby, and did it really emotionally affect me very much? No. But because it was so, it was just presented to us so much, it could have. And there's definitely that point where you can be affected by things if you let it. And so, like for me, it was eliminating a lot of that from my life, so I'm not constantly getting bombarded by it. But then you also have to master your neurological response to things too, which is huge. And that I think is probably the biggest portion of how do you heal. Because if your body is, just overrun with that stimulation, and it's stimulated, you have to be able to do something that stimulates those parasympathetic nerves, or those green nerves that come out through your neck and your pelvis. And those are the ones that let you heal. Those are the ones that let your immune system work. Those are the ones that let your body recover. Those are the ones that let you sleep. Those are the ones that kind of undo all of those things that happen when you get that chronic stress and you get that fight or flight response. So how do you do that?
Right. 6 or 7 years ago, I tore a back muscle and I was in the ER. I couldn't stand or sit. Like, it was pretty painful. And I remember they drugged me with so many drugs. I can't remember what. I was actually being nice to people, so they knew I was on drugs. So It's kind of like an inside joke to my family. I'm like, Mom, I'm so proud of you. Like, he's never like this. So anyways, and I remember though, they're like, okay, it's time to go home. I'm like, what? I can't move. And what do I do? They're like, just rest and go see your family doctor in a few days. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So all you're doing is prescribing me painkillers. And I don't want to knock the system. I know they do good for
You're there, and they do wonders when you need them.
Yeah. And so I remember even just trying to roll out of the bed, which is an adventure in itself. You know, I won't get too personal with it, but just the first few days was like straight hell. And I was just like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm not moving. And I'm on these painkillers and muscle relaxers they gave me, and I just got tired of it. And after about a few days, I felt like I had the flu because they had me on so much stuff. And just to try to make it to the restroom was like exhausting. It was an adventure, and I'm like dizzy. I'm like, I'm not doing this. So I'm like, I'm not taking this stuff. And I kind of just, I'm not telling anyone listening or watching not to take your meds. I just but I had a bad attitude. Like I was kind of like just down in the dumps. Like, this sucks. Every thought was like, ow, I can't cough without it hurting, you know, just going through that whole entire process. But there's a point of it, I just kind of gritted up and I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. And I started talking to my body, and people probably think it's crazy. I'm just like, I'm going to start speaking positive thoughts or something. I don't know. Something's got to be better than just because this hurts and it sucks. I can't do nothing. So I just kind of saying like, no, we're going to heal ourselves. And I don't know who I was talking to or anything, but I was kind of like coaching my body through it. But you know what's funny about it? And this wasn't some secret documentary or any kind of like voodoo thing I was doing, but it changed my mindset. And I think what you're hitting on is how we emotionally and neurologically handle that. I literally just shifted my mindset, but I noticed after like 2 or 3 days of doing that, it was easier to get out of bed. Yeah. And that was a 6 months healing process for me. So it wasn't like, well, you just, rested for a few days. No, it was a 6 month healing process. And I ended up throwing most of the painkillers away because I didn't use probably 70-80% of them, So it was like literally your attitude can make it worse, right? And make it worse. That's what you're saying. Or help it heal faster. And so I saw that through that. And of course, chiropractic helps. So, my chiropractor helped me through that process. And
the physical pain.
The physical pain, and kept going through there. And people are, a lot of critics will, we have to keep going back. I've learned through that process what my body feels like now. So I don't wait till things hurt to go to the chiropractor. Before it was like an SOS call. It was like, Doc, can you fit me in? I can't move.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people every week come through our doors and sit like, they need help onto a table because they waited until they flared up so bad again. But, the majority of my patients are probably in here every couple of weeks because they know they feel better and they do better and they sleep better and their digestion works better. And, that's that neurological response to adjusting your body. And so if you are overstimulated where these nerves are the only ones working, how do you get those ones to fire again? You stimulate them. And so we adjust them. And by adjusting these areas, you're starting to stimulate that parasympathetic response, that resting and digesting, and you're able to actually start balancing things out again instead of just constantly be overrun by this sympathetic nervous system. And so how do you master that neurological response? Go see your chiropractor and tell them you're stressed out. And I'm sure if you find a good one, they will know that they need to work on your parasympathetic nervous system and stimulate that. Because it's really about bringing that balance back to your nervous system through working on those areas.
Right. And there's no silver bullet, right? I mean, like we talked about the emotional connection, the social connection there, it's real hard when you're on Zoom and you're used to being in office, a lot of coworkers, for a lot of us. And, are you getting some kind of social connection, even if it is electronic, your medical doctors are great. I'm not telling you not to visit them, but there's some alternative measures and methods. We chiropractors, physical therapists you mentioned, maybe some natural medicine type places, or just nutrition in general. I know for me, the chiropractors I can feel my body now just send these little alarms, like minor pains that don't really hurt, that I would just walk through. But then I'm like, I felt that before it got bad. So I'm going to go now.
Your body's
kinda,
telling you.
yes,
Your body is like, hey, don't ignore this one anymore.
it's
I had a
kind of like,
gentleman. Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I had a gentleman in. He just started with us maybe like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and he's had low back issues for about 6 months, and he knows this. Like, he remembers the exact time it happened. It's almost exactly 6 months. And I go, okay, anything else going on in those 6 months? No, not really. How's your digestion? And it was like low sacrum, and these nerves are the ones that, those green ones are the ones that let you go regularly. And I go, how's your digestion? You constipated? And he goes,
How'd you know that?
yeah. And I go, is that recent, like the last 6 months? And he goes, yeah. And his eyes got huge. And I've been seeing him, I think, for 3 or 4 weeks. And he's like, he came in one day and he's like, it's better. So it's
TMI, buddy, TMI. No,
I know,
no,
but
it's good. And that's what got me to chiropractic the first time, is my mom actually had a sinus infection or some kind of sinus issues all the time. And her chiropractor, did the same thing. You having sinus issues? How'd you know that? And he did a couple little tricks and wherever it's at. And she's like, it instantly cleared up. And she's not, she's MD, type person, but she went to then she's telling everyone, you got to go to the chiropractor. You got to go. Chiropractor said, got everyone else to go. So it was awesome. She's kind of evangelizing your field. So it was perfect. But yeah, it's insane how interconnected it is. And I hear stories, story after story like that. And there's no silver bullet out there, but I go and take care, listen to your body, take care of it. And, our big thing of the Safety Council obviously is workplace injuries. And I just think how many injuries or surgeries that could have been prevented, all these different factors that we talked about. And if we would just take care of ourselves a little bit better and handle that stress. So any final thoughts?
Yeah, just literally to summarize, like something I was just thinking with you saying some of those things of like, you have to find your team, and you have to find,
that's good.
If you look at somebody where you think, man, they look healthy and they look happy and they look like they're doing pretty good, maybe ask them what they're doing. Like, maybe go up to them and say, hey, how are you in such a good mood? Hey, how do you look so good? What are you doing? Like, physically, what are you doing? Find a gym that you like, that, or some sort of exercise program that you like. Find a friend that wants to walk with you every single day. Find, something that will hold you accountable for exercise, because that's a big physical and a mental outlet. Find friends that you can just vent to, and this isn't like me saying this as a chiropractor. This is me saying this as like a person, where find those people that you can surround yourself with, where you're going to constantly get that improvement, whether it's mental improvement, whether it's physical improvement, whether that's finding a massage therapist that you absolutely love, that you can say, hey, any chance you can get me in this weekend, I'm just feeling like, tense. Or, find a chiropractor that you like, find a massage or a physical therapist that you like, find a medical doctor that you like, that will actually encourage you to be healthier. And find somebody that has a really good diet, and maybe ask them to show you a new recipe. When's the last time somebody cooked with somebody else that wasn't in their household? That's a heck of a lot of fun. Like, we made Christmas cookies over Christmas, which these aren't healthy, but how much fun is that? And you're able to see people and, find people that you feel comfortable with, and you find people that, not to sound corny, but that will lift you. Find people that are going to encourage you, and find people that are going to be, that source of light and that source of goodness for you. Because I feel like so much right now, we are just under that stress and under like this cloud of darkness. And, how are you ever going to get out of there if physically you don't feel good, mentally you're not there, you're still putting a bunch of crap into your body? Do things to change it. And it's really not up to anybody else to do it for you. It's really on you of how you're going to do those things. And so find that community for you that will just engulf you with that encouragement, and just, put you in that right direction if you want to be there.
Yeah, that's awesome information. Thank you so much. I want to just do one quick story again. When the lockdowns first happened, the gym shut down, and I was like, what am I going to do? So I did a podcast with a personal trainer in Ravenna, of course, take advantage of every opportunity at the safety council. And I just knew her from my gym from years ago, and she's a go-getter. And, you know, she would harass me if I parked in the front parking lot instead of the back.
Yep.
Way to go, Mike. You're not going to lose weight. She was just tough. And her name's Leslie Keegan. She's awesome. And so I had her on.
I'd like her.
Yeah, you would. You should go find the podcast. She's funny. So I've known her for, over a decade. And, but just talking to her through the podcast, it kind of fired me up. I was like, you know what? I could do some of this stuff. I'm not going to do planks, and I'm not going to do, what are those things? Yup. Those things you hop down on the ground and jump back up. Burpees. Yeah, burpees are the Antichrist. I don't do those.
Move your camera and show everyone what a burpee is.
No, not going to happen. I'm comfy on my couch right now. So, but
do it on your couch.
But I literally, so in the beginning, I couldn't go to Planet Fitness where I work out in Streets World. And so I started this like little home routine where I started doing my abs. I've known for years I should do it because I have back issues, to strengthen up and help support my back, just do core training and stuff. Never done it. So I started doing it, and I was like, I feel really good. Well, then the gym's open back up. So guess what I quit doing? I quit doing it. So this fall, the gyms are still open, but I just kept thinking about it. You know, getting some pain in my back again. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing this again. But what was crazy about it, and this is the point I try to sell everyone on Facebook. I'm trying to evangelize ab workouts now.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not the model for it, right? But what's crazy is,
look at my 6-pack.
Right. Going into, good luck finding that here. So I was getting up in the morning. I try to get some me time before the kid gets up and before work. And but it started taking me for a long time. If I'm in a good routine, I'll get up maybe 10, 15 minutes. Okay. But it started taking me almost an hour to wake up. Like I'd be up and I'd have coffee and I'm like, I don't want to be up. I don't want to be in bed. That kind of thing. And I'm going through there. And then what's funny though is I'm like, man, what's wrong with me? I just need to get healthier. I'm going through the whole list, and I started doing the ab workout where I would do back stretches on the floor, and I would do like trunk twist and just different types of crunches and side bends and leg lifts.
Not burpees.
Bicycles, and not burpees. These are easier, way easier. Otherwise I wouldn't do them. So just simple like crunch type movements. No full sit-ups, no burpees from hell, or mountain climbers. I hate those too. Those are on the blacklist. And but I just started doing a simple like ab workout and back stretches that I just saw on YouTube and different things. And literally within 3 days of doing this in a row, like I woke up like the third or fourth day, and I got up and I was like, I'm awake.
That was easy.
And I'm like, what? And then I noticed
you were like
yes, when I stayed consistent, the grogginess I was feeling in the morning actually went away. So I started telling my wife, I'm like, you won't believe this.
You're going to start doing these ab workouts with me.
I would have thought I needed more coffee, but it wasn't helping, you know what I mean? Or better sleep. And it wasn't actually the sleep because I was getting tons of sleep. It's just whatever was going on when I started doing that little bit of, and I was still going to the gym, but that wasn't doing when I would do that ab workout and do the back stretches. It did something in my body literally where I would wake up much more alert sooner than before.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I know it's it's effective when you do something physical and hold yourself accountable. And I think probably the number one thing I tell my patients, find a 10-minute yoga video on YouTube and start with that. Mm-hmm. And if you can stay consistent with that, and I'll tell them do it right before bed because it just calms you down. You still get a little bit in, it stretches you, but start with a 10-minute yoga video. And if you can just start doing that every day, and if that feels good, you can start adding something else in if you want. And like a lady yesterday, I literally last night, 10 p.m., she's like, okay, what can I do? Do you exercise? No. Tomorrow morning when you get up, I want you to do 10 jumping jacks. 10 jumping jacks. That's it. Start doing that. And if you start doing that every single morning when you get out of bed, start doing 15. And if you start doing 15, start doing 20. And if you can create that habit where you're just, you get into that routine of doing something, it becomes normal, and it helps with all, everything we've talked about. It helps with all of that. And you just kind of have to find that for yourself. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's nothing that is like one size fit all. Man, CrossFit, I'm going to do CrossFit. Yoga, I'm going to do yoga. Walking, I'm going to do walking. Find what you like. If you don't like running, don't run. If you don't like doing burpees, don't do burpees. Like, find something physically that you like as that like outlet, kind of like what you're saying. You like doing your abs, and you're telling everyone about doing abs. Good.
Yeah, it was just mind blowing. It made me wake up. I thought, okay, it'll help my back pain a little bit.
Yep.
But the benefits were well beyond that. And it's funny because I'm definitely not the model of abs. Oh my gosh. But that's the funny part, is the all around health that came from it, you know. And I was already going to the gym and doing stuff. So it was just, I don't know what it was, but the effect of my body as awakening. So Dr. Aubree, if people want to reach out to you, you know, if they're like, hey, I need a chiropractor, how do they get hold of you?
Jones. Well, I think you have my email if you want to write it on there, but Dr. A. Jones, D-R-A. Jones @peakakron.com. Shoot me an email. Respond. I usually respond within a few days. So don't hold me accountable for like 24 hours or 2 hours. I usually respond quickly. Our office is in Fairlawn. And, you know, if you're 50 minutes away from here, an hour away from here, shoot me an email and say, hey, do you know anyone that's on the other side of Kent? Okay, I'll look for somebody for you. Or, you know, ask your friends and put a thing on your Facebook of, hey, who's gone to a chiropractor that they really love? You'll find them. There's a lot of chiropractors around here. You just have to find one that you love and that, you know, fits your life. And that's, I think, you know, the biggest thing for me. I see a ton of pregnant ladies. I see a ton of babies, and I just love doing that. And so, you know, I had 3 new pregnant ladies today. And just because,
nice.
You know, in 4 hours of being here. And it's just, that's who I like seeing. And, you know, I think that's just how they find out about me, is because pregnant ladies tell other pregnant ladies. And, you know, you, I'm sure, have told your friends about your chiropractor because of your back issue and your knee issue. And ask other people and find other people. And, you know, if you want to come see me, great. And, you know, I'm more than happy to. We have a couple docs in our office. And so we're here all week, and they're all great. And I get adjusted by all of them. And, you know, if you've never been to a chiropractor before and you've heard bad things about it, or if, like, I don't have to do anything to you. You can just come in and talk to me and see if it's something that you think you want to do. And if it is, great, we'll move forward. And if you don't, you know, if you're like, I don't know, I'm not ready for that yet, you still can come in and have a conversation with me and talk about those things, and if it's going to help you. So
once you do it, you'll be hooked, though. I'm telling you. That's the only thing. You'll be back, because you'll be like, I had that right here. I had access to that my entire life, and I never used that.
I had a lady. She's one of my good friends now. First time I adjusted her, she literally, and I'm going to do this a little bit, she like got off the table and was like doing this crazy body dance. I can't even recreate it. And
she jumped down to do the worm.
She seriously, I'm sorry she didn't, but she was just like, I feel so much better almost instantly. She just felt like everything could move. And it's amazing. It's amazing what it does. And
anything happens to me, I go to my chiropractor first. Can you fix this? If not, I'm going to an MD. But you take care of me first. Yeah. It usually works, most things. So, Dr. Aubree, thank you so much. That's awesome. And we enjoy having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking out time of your day and speaking to our listeners. If you're listening to this through the podcast, I will put a link to her office in the show notes. So you can click on that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just go ahead and Google Peak Family Chiropractic in Akron, Ohio, and find the information. It's really easy to find. So,
yeah. And if you mentioned that you found us on this podcast, I think I told you guys before, we'll do complimentary first visit. So you don't have to worry about it.
There you go. It's free. Yep. I need like a little thing with fireworks going off in the background.
If you want to come in and talk to me, don't worry about the charge. Come on in. We'll figure it out.
All right. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
You come back again. We got to do this like every year.
You can.
It's like an annual thing. All right.
I'm game.
All right. Thanks, everybody.